A few months have passed since Ash became a frontier brain, with the young man having spent most of his time at the battle junction around Pallet Town training with his Pokemon. It has been nice to see his friends and family more often, though he has yet to have an official challenger to test the fruits of these training against, as all the people Scott has scouted have failed to make it to him, often falling against the earlier brains. While Ash supposes this is an occupational hazard of being the 5th frontier brain, he would like a challenge, as things have begun to feel slow. Evidently, he is not the only one experiencing this ennui, as a few weeks earlier, Brandon had headed off to Sinnoh to explore some ancient temple, since it had nothing to do here in Kanto. Ash had been tempted to ask to go with him, though in the end he had decided to stay, as a new challenger had just beaten Nolan, and he had been hoping to face them soon. Unfortunately, this had not come to pass, with Greta ending their Battle Frontier run, and with it, Ash's hope for a battle. In an attempt to combat this stir craziness, Ash takes a leaf from Brandon's book, going on short trips for days at a time, often visiting Pewter and Cerulean City to catch up with and occasionally train against Brock and Misty. During one of these trips, he even makes a detour to the Tree of Beginning, visiting Mew and paying his respects to Lucario. The originator of all Pokemon is happy to see the boy, and especially its pal Pikachu, with the pair being able to have the playdate they were denied during Pikachu's first visit. Nonetheless, even this is not quite enough to alleviate the feeling of inertia chafing Ash, and so it comes as a welcome surprise when one morning while training at Oak's lab, he hears a familiar voice calling to him from across the corral. Looking around, Ash spots Gary walking towards him, and so takes off to meet the other boy halfway, clasping hands and grinning that it's good to see him. Smiling as well, Gary replies that the feeling's mutual, for asking what Ash is doing here, since he thought he'd be offered his fancy new battle facility. Sighing a little, Ash explains the issue he's been experiencing with lack of challenges, to which Gary laughs that in that case, he'll help his old rival break the monotony, adding he hasn't had a good battle since he faced off with a Pokemon hunter a few months back. Beaming now, Ash implores Gary to tell him all about it in his time in Sinnoh, with the pair swapping stories for the duration of their walk to the battle junction, with Ash learning about all the new Pokemon Gary encountered, while Gary hears of Ash's Hoenn and Battle Frontier exploits, with this being the first time the two boys have met in person since the Silver Conference. Finally, they arrive at the battle junction, where Ash gives the young oak the tour, for explaining the rules of their match, and that Gary will have to battle at a type disadvantage. Being a perceptive young man, Gary quickly surmises this is to force adaptability, to which Ash grins that his old rival is right, before immediately falling on his face when Gary adds that it's just like Ash to make bonehead stubbornness in the face of bad odds a central feature of his facility. All the same, he accepts Ash's terms, meaning that a moment later the duo are on opposite sides of the battlefield, as it rises into view, showing the first match will take place on a field of rocks. Taking a moment to consider the terrain before them, Gary decides to open with his Electivire, while Ash's transfer machine gives him the only viable choice, with that being Donphan. Nodding approvingly, Gary comments that it looks like Ash has made a strong battler out of the egg he got from that time they entered the Extreme Pokemon race, though the brain should know that his Electivire is strong too, so he shouldn't take them lightly. To prove this point, he orders an Iron Tail, and with speeds rivaling some of the stronger frontier brains, Electivire shoots forward, its twin tails glowing bright as they strike Donphan's trunk one after another, causing the roly-poly elephant to rear up and trumpet its pain before curling in on itself and going in for a rollout. However, here too Gary has a counter, having Electivire use Protect, which not only protects it from the attack, but also halts Donphan's momentum, meaning it cannot build up more speed and power, though this is hardly the ground type's biggest problem, as when it unfurls after being sent skidding back by the Protect, Electivire closes in once more and sweeps it off its feet with the first strike of another Iron Tail. Landing hard, Donphan is in no position to block the second tail, which collects it and sends it soaring end over end until it crashes into the back wall, being rendered unconscious and giving the first match to Gary. As Ash recalls his ground type, he comments that Gary's just as impressive as ever, but with a flick of his hair, Gary lightly admonishes Ash that just because he's no longer a competitive battler doesn't mean he's lost his edge, something the younger brain should keep in mind. Nodding, Ash presses the button to bring out the next battlefield, this time a grass one, and as Gary chooses Umbreon to be his second Pokemon, Ash selects Primeape. At once, it is plain to see that the pig monkey is raring to go, with Gary asking if this Primeape is a new capture. However, here Ash shakes his head, explaining that he caught it during their Kanto journey, though it's been off training for a really long time, with this being their first battle since reuniting. Grinning, Gary says in that case he almost feels bad to make it a loss, though it seems Primeape has something to say about that, or rather, scream, as with a blood-curdling howl the fighting type throws itself at its opponent the moment the match is called to start. Though Umbreon is fast, the tales of a Primeape pursuing its foe forever are not exaggerations, with the pig monkey chasing the dark type up and down the field, all the while slowly gaining ground. Wanting to lose this insane ape, Gary has Umbreon use Sand Attack, with his cat rabbit kicking up grass and dirt into Primeape's face, though even still Primeape presses on, seemingly only growing more angry thanks to this dirty trick. This rage gives Primeape just the boost in stamina it needs to close in on Umbreon, leaping at it and pinning it to the ground, much to the little dark type's distress. Primeape then proceeds to beat on Umbreon, assailing it until Gary tells the evolution to use Psychic, hoping the super effective attack will finally drive the brute away. Unfortunately, this proves fruitless, as even when the blue sonic outline of Psychic surrounds Primeape, it continues to wail on its foe, even grabbing hold of the dark type's fur so it cannot be pulled away, or using the force of its fury to fight off the Psychic constriction. Gary cannot believe what he's seeing, having never known a Pokemon to be able to overcome Umbreon's Psychic, though now is hardly the time to be excited by this unusual scientific phenomena, as his Pokemon is in serious trouble, taking blow after blow from the enraged pig monkey. And so it is that a few moments later, Umbreon's eyes become spirals, signifying the end of the second round, and tying the two trainers at 1 apiece. Hoping to rectify this, Gary chooses his ace Blastoise last, while Ash brings forth Sceptile for a clash of starter Pokemon on a battlefield of ice. Going first, Gary starts with an Ice Beam, knowing that the Grass Gecko is susceptible to ice moves, and due to this being an unfavourable terrain for Sceptile to move on, it is struck head-on, groaning in pain as a deep chill fills its body. Refusing to allow this to happen again, Sceptile starts to move, leaping onto one of the many icebergs during the field, then spring onto another, and another. This allows it to start building up speed while also staying one step ahead of Blastoise, until finally can close in with Leaf Blade, slashing twice diagonally across the tortoise's shell and skidding to a stop behind it. Letting out a bellow of pain, Blastoise retaliates by spinning around and assailing Sceptile with Hydro Pump. However, this is barely more than a refreshing drink for the grass type, with it bounding back onto the icebergs and beginning its jumping once more. Unfortunately, Gary is far too smart to fall for the same trick twice, and so analysing Sceptile's patterns, is able to predict where the Grass Gecko will land next, telling Blastoise to fire an Ice Beam the moment Sceptile is in the air. As a result, the forest Pokemon is unable to change direction, landing directly in the path of the Ice Beam, and being frozen solid thanks to the water still on its skin. This leaves Sceptile completely vulnerable, something Gary does not hesitate to capitalize on, shattering the ice with a Skull Bash that sends Sceptile sprawling onto its back at Ash's feet. Even still, the gutsy Gecko is able to fight, and so when Blastoise fires another Ice Beam, Sceptile rolls out of the way before firing back Bullet Seed, which causes the turtle a great deal of distress. Recognizing this as their chance to regain control in the battle, Ash and Sceptile rush in, using Quick Attack to close the distance and shoulder barge its foe before following up with another Leaf Blade, which strikes just where the first one did. Stumbling back, Blastoise suddenly looks much worse for wear, though in truth, Sceptile appears fairly worn out as well. Seeing this at the same time, the two trainers then call for their final attacks, Hydro Pump and Bullet Seed, with the two moves meeting in the middle. Due to being high-level Pokemon, neither attack can break through the other, meaning the only other option is a stalemate, with the moves exploding in the center of the field and baiting the battlefield in smoke. In unison, Ash and Gary call out for their Pokemon, though when the smoke clears, it is to reveal Sceptile standing over an unconscious Blastoise, signifying the end of the match. Withdrawing his starter, Gary praises Ash, saying he's really found his niche here, though he better not slack off since one of these days he might come back for a rematch. Grinning, Ash welcomes Gary to try, a claim which makes both boys laugh as they reflect on their shared history and how far the two of them have come from the headstrong rookies who left Palatine to become Pokemon Masters so long ago. Following this, Ash's life returns to the same somewhat monotonous routine of training, manning his post at the battle junction, and doing some light travelling. During one of these day trips, Ash comes across a wild Dunsparce, with Pikachu agreeing to battle it so he can add it to his roster, like Scott encouraged him to do. However, before Pikachu can land the finishing blow, Ash receives a call from the Frontier boss himself. Pulling out the phone Scott had given him, Ash asks what his employer is calling him about, with the laid-back man replying the young Junction Master is going to blow his stack over this. He's finally getting a challenger. As expected, this does get Ash all fired up, with him asking for any details about his opponent that Scott can give him. Grinning, Scott replies there's a new Wonder Boy from Sinnoh who has just beaten Lucy, and from what the other brains have said, he's a tactical battler, but a bit of a brute, so he's hoping Ash's facility might force him to look at things a bit differently. Nodding, Ash promises to give the boy a real challenge, though before he can hang up, Scott tells Ash there's something else he should know. This kid's big brother took the Battle Frontier challenge a while back, and made it all the way to Brandon. From what he can tell, the new challenge is only doing the Frontier so he can avenge his bro, which means he'll be holding nothing back, so Ash better do the same if he wants to stand a chance. This only makes Ash grin wider, as he says he'll be sure to keep that in mind, prompting Scott to give the boy his thanks, then end the call. Turning back to Pikachu and Dunsparce, Ash is disappointed to see that the normal type has fled, though he does receive a consolation prize a few moments later, when his phone buzzes, showing that Scott has sent him his dossier on this new challenger. Looking it over, Ash sees a boy about his own age with purple hair and a deep scowl, who according to the file promptly demolished the first 4 Frontier brains without losing a single Pokemon. This will certainly be an interesting challenge. As Ash begins heading back to the battle junction to prepare with Pikachu on his shoulder, he once more reads the name on the top of the dossier. Paul, from Veilstone City. As promised, Paul arrives a week later with Ash greeting him warmly while trying to also convey an air of power and authority, similar to how most of the other brains did when he first met them. Unfortunately for Ash, Paul couldn't care less, respectfully but bluntly asking if they can get on with the battle already, since he's trying to earn his way back to Brandon for a rematch, and as far as he's concerned, the other Frontier brains are simply an impediment to his real goal. Intrigued by this thanks to what Scott had told him, Ash asked Paul to explain, with the purple-haired youth revealing that during his Sinnoh League journey, he met Brandon in Snow Point City, where he agreed to a battle. Despite his best efforts, he was unable to defeat the Pyramid King, though this did not stop him, with him continuing his training and earning his way up to the semi-finals of the Lily of the Valley Conference. After falling to the man who would go on to win the league, he then returned to Brandon in Snow Point City, asking if they could have a rematch, though here he was refused, with Brandon stating he had to beat all the other brains for the right to face him like any other Battle Frontier challenger. Truthfully, Ash wants to ask ask more, but it seems Paul's patience won't abide another round of questioning, with him testily asking if they're going to battle or not. Nodding, Ash replies they are, and so explains the rules of the battle junction to Paul, while leading him to the battlefield, which in this case resembles an actual field, being made of flowers. Seeing this, Paul has no trouble choosing his first Pokemon to be Torterra, a creature Ash is unfamiliar with, though when the transfer machine shows him his choices, he sees one name who he's sure can carry him through, even in uncertain circumstances. A moment later, that Pokemon's ball is in Ash's hand, and as he hurls it into the air, Charizard bursts forth, roaring triumphantly as it soars above Torterra. Nonetheless, Paul is not deterred, calling for a Giga Drain, with spectral green tendrils lashing out and attempting to connect with the fire type. Deftly, Charizard avoids these, before coming in to strafe Torterra with a flamethrower, which not only causes the grass type to stress, but also sets the field ablaze beneath it. In one simple action, Ash has put himself in decisive command of this battle, and so holding nothing back, he orders another flamethrower. However, this time Paul has a counter, using Giga Drain to harness the green energy tendrils as a shield, meeting flamethrower and absorbing its damage. Frowning, Ash next tries for an overheat, hoping a stronger fire type move might break through, though here too Giga Drain proves an effective shield, taking the brunt of the damage and ensuring Torterra survives the encounter mostly unscathed. For the next few passes, Ash attempts this from other angles, hoping Torterra has a blind spot he can exploit. However, with Paul watching its back, there is nothing the young frontier brain can do from afar, meaning his only choice is to close in and break through the Giga Drain wall. Meeting Charizard's eyes, Ash tells his old friend to use Steel Wing, though when the Fire Star swoops its prey, Paul tells Torterra to do it now, revealing Ash has just stumbled into a trap. At once, thick thorny vines shoot out from the ground, with two wrapping around Charizard's wings, while the remaining pair bind its mouth and neck, preventing the use of any further fire attacks. Paul then orders a series of stone edges, with Torterra firing them into Charizard's exposed underbelly, making it shriek in pain through its thorny muzzle. Bluntly, Paul tells Ash that this battle is over, though Ash would not be Ash if he did not have one last trick up his sleeve, calling for Charizard to free itself by setting the vines alight with its tail flame. Acting in perfect sync with its trainer, Charizard swings its tail wildly, igniting the 4 frenzy plants just as Ash had wanted, and as they begin to burn up, Charizard rips his way to freedom, removing first the one around its throat, and then the one sealing its mouth. Now at last is able to use its breath attacks again, and so turning to glare at Torterra, Charizard begins charging up one last overheat. Knowing this could be bad if left unchecked, Paul calls for a full power Stone Edge, with Torterra upping the power of its ongoing barrage, causing larger and sharper stones to fly up at Charizard's belly. Up above, Charizard is done charging, and in Ash's cry it launches the attack. Or rather, it tries to, as just before Charizard can attack, the enhanced stones pierce its stomach, putting out its internal fire and causing it to slump forward, suspended only by the last remnants of Frenzy Plant which soon burn away, dropping the lizard to the ground. Eyeing it coldly from its prone position, Paul comments that this is the Charizard who beat Nolan's Articuno, is it? His tone suggesting that he is less than impressed. Angrily, Ash snaps that it is, asking why Paul wants to know, to which the boy from Sinnoh explains that his Torterra also beat Articuno, though unlike Ash and Charizard, they did it with a Quad Ice weakness. The two trainers then return their Pokemon, as the next random battlefield appears, this time being a standard gym style. Seeing no way to get an edge with this, Paul tells his Chimchar to stand by for battle, as a small simian Pokemon bursts from its ball. Upon seeing the creature, Ash's first instinct is that it appears to be in poor health, with its stooped, twitchy posture, pinprick pupils, and a tail flame that keeps pulsating from minuscule to almost as large as the Pokemon itself. Concern in his voice, Ash asks Paul if this Pokemon is okay to battle, though in a flat tone, Paul retorts that it's fine. At the sound of its trainer's voice, Ash sees Chimchar tense, as if scared for its life, but before he can question this, Paul barks a single command at Chimchar: Blaze. At this word, the fire monkey lets out a primal shriek as its tail flame grows exponentially and its eyes take on a soulless pink glow. Recognizing this is not a Pokemon to underestimate, Ash goes with Kingler, though when Chimchar sees this new rival, it does not hesitate to attack, barreling towards the king crab and striking with a supersized flame wheel to the face. Hastily, Ash's Kingler responds with a super effective crab hammer, which knocks the chimp away, though even still this does not stop it, with Chimchar returning to the attack as soon as it is able, all the while keeping up that unnerving berserker scream. Wanting to keep Chimchar as far away from his Kingler as possible, Ash has the water type use Water Gun, though when Chimchar meets this with a blaze-powered flamethrower it is no contest, with the Water Gun being entirely evaporated and the smell of barbecue crab filling the battle junction. This of course leaves Kingler even more vulnerable than before to Chimchar's assault, with the fire monkey leaping onto its head and quite literally proceeding to go ape on it. Thinking fast, Ash responds by calling for a vice grip, with Kingler grabbing Chimchar in one of its big meaty claws and holding it at arm's length so it cannot hurt it. Unfortunately, this is a misapprehension, as while Chimchar Chimchar cannot scratch or kick anymore, it can still bite, and so in spite of Kingler's carapace being far harder than its teeth, Chimchar begins to bite, ignoring its pain, or possibly even growing stronger because of it, as it bites down over and over again on Kingler's pincer. For a moment, Ash is unsure what to do, hardly able to believe the brutality of this Pokemon, which makes his Primeape seem docile in comparison, though it seems inaction is not a valid choice, as with another rage-filled scream, Chimchar manages to crack Kingler's shell with its teeth, causing the crustacean to cry out in pain, instinctively slackening its grip and allowing Chimchar to leap onto the Water-type's arm, where it begins winding up front of the Flame Wheel. Being quite literally on top of Kingler, there is nowhere the King Crab can go, and so it comes as a little surprise when a moment later the giant fireball strikes it between the eyes and knocks it out. However, even unconsciousness cannot save Kingler from the feral fire type, who continues to scratch, bite, and blast it with flames until Ash recalls Kingler and Paul does likewise with Chimchar. Due to Paul having won 2-0, there is no need for a third round, with Ash handing over the adaptability symbol, which Paul takes with a scowl, saying that this is the kid who supposedly beat Brandon. He can't imagine how he did it, since he and his Pokemon are pathetic. He then turns on his heel and strides away, ignoring the furious replies Ash hurls at his back. When Paul is gone, Ash gives Scott a call, informing of his loss to Paul and encouraging him to warn Annabelle about that berserker Chimchar. Smiling more through habit than actual joy, Scott thanks Ash for the tip, then noticing his pensive expression, asks how he's handling his first loss as a Frontier Brain. To his surprise, Ash replies that he's fine, since he knew that losing would come with the territory. No, what's on his mind is the fact that he's had 2 incredible battles lately, both from people who had just come from the Sinnoh region. To top it off, Brandon's over there right now no doubt getting loads stronger, so if he wants to keep from falling behind, then it seems like he's got to go to Sinnoh too. And that's where we'll leave things. What adventures will Ash have in the Sinnoh region? Can he rise to the level of trainers such as Paul? And will he encounter any new Pokemon for his team while there? Find out as the journey continues.